Awesome. You've made it all the way to the transition issue. This is where the fun really begins. Okay, cool. So, a little bit of context. Like I said a couple videos ago, I am switching over to the Foundations group that lives within the ecosystem stage. And so we'll kind of spend the next couple milestones. That's the blocks in which we release every month or so. So as you're joining, I believe, towards the end of 14.8, which I think ends like February like 17th or 18th or something like that. So over the course of 14.9, probably in some into 14.10, we're going to start collaborating more. But for now, I just kind of wanted to walk you through some of the different pages that I visit. All this is pretty much listed out in the issue, but sometimes it's helpful to get a little bit of a virtual walkthrough. So just want to highlight a few things for you. We can talk more over coffee, chat it up. And yeah, hopefully this will help suffice while I'm not present at the moment. I'm also on my ultrawide monitor, so hopefully this isn't too obnoxious for you in terms of sizing. I guess I'll increase the page resolution. That might help a little bit. So one of the things that might be most useful to you is looking at a board. We use boards for both epics and issues, but there is one specifically for the managed compliance team that I've created many moons ago. You'll have to search specifically for manage compliance UX. It's annoying, but you won't be able to read the whole thing in the drop down. There's a reason for that, but it's just more of a technical problem. Anyway, so these are all the issues that we're kind of facing, and these would be useful to look at as you're considering things that you might want to pick up. Now, some of this is duplicate, and a lot of this is metadata noise, so we use issue labels to categorize everything. There's more ways that we could probably refine that and make it better, so I tend to turn these off just so I can help reduce a little bit of noise. And I've broken up the segments in this board to highlight how things go in our validation tracks. They go from our validation backlog into our problem validation, into our workflow design, solution validation, planning breakdown. So that's like our track. And then once it goes through planning breakdown, that's when things start getting built by the team, once they get implementation plans and start going through the build track, which we track in a different board. But for now, let's just focus on the design stuff. All these other issues, these have more to do with our system usability scale. So we're trying to improve essentially the usability of GitLab. And a lot of these issues are highlighting how we're going to make some of those improvements. You'll learn as you go through the product that there's a lot of opportunity for improvement. So there's an endless number of issues that we would love to tackle. But the challenge is always figuring out what the heck are we going to work on each milestone. So we lean pretty heavily on our product management counterparts to help with that roadmap, with that guidance, and then we help inform that direction. However you want to set that cadence with the PM for compliance, that is up to you. That's up to you both to figure out what works well in terms of your cadence. In the past, Sam Kerr and I would meet on every Monday, just talk about some themes that we're both focusing on from the product management perspective and the UX perspective. Sometimes we might talk about design, or we might talk about some engineering challenges that we're facing, or some research that we'd like to go down and figure out more about. But this is a very broad way to look at everything you got in front of you. Probably too much for the moment, because there's just going to be so many issues, and trust me, I spent a lot of time just looking through a lot of issues. A weird quirk you might eventually come across is some issues have been promoted into epics, which are essentially parent containers for issues, and those won't appear here. So you'll have to go to you have to go to our epics list and find those boards there and look at it that way. But anyway, we'll talk about the low-level issues a little bit. So I talked about this before, but the page that has our groups, this is super helpful just to see who's in your group and who you work with. So Sam Kerr's the product manager. We've been working together for the past year or so. Super great. Currently on parental leave. Sam White is the interim PM, so you will interface with him on a weekly basis until Sam returns. Sam Kerr returns, which I think is going to be end of March. See how that goes. And then I also work pretty closely with both Dan Jensen, the engineering backend manager, and Dennis, who's the front-end engineering manager. Our engineers are awesome. I love working with all of them. They're super smart. I have really appreciated how they both bring thoughtful discussion into UX conversations, so I frequently will pull them into design issues just to talk about the feasibility of an idea that I might have. We tend to opt for boring solutions as a minimum viable change, and then look for UI refinement and improvement. So what that might mean is bringing in like a view component that we built, maybe one that's been recreated somewhere else in the product, creating a shared component, and then repurposing it for our use, and then looking to update pajamas accordingly. Anna's your UX researcher. She is phenomenal, super helpful at targeting the right people for research, helping craft good scripts for how you'll be testing certain solutions. She will be instrumental for category maturity scorecard research. We'll talk more about that later. And Evan has been just a baller to work with on the tech writing side. He's really helped me hone in my craft on UI text. We actually have a, my dog is now watching out the window. Hey, Sally, lay down. She's watching intently out the window for anybody to cross our path. Yeah, we have a recommended word list, so I'll quickly go to that just to show you. Oh, man, this list is amazing. As I've learned to write UI copy a little bit better, there's so many good recommendations in here. We do have some automated tests that help catch some things, but when you're trying to decide what makes sense, this is a great way to use that for your designs. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell like the group you're working with. Typically each milestone, what we do is we have a planning issue, so I tend to bookmark this however you'd like to do that, each milestone, so I can come back and refer to it. This just serves as like a singular touch point for the team where you kind of see the objective and themes that we're looking at accomplishing. So this is 14.8. This will have been wrapping up. Yeah, February 22nd is when it ends. You can also highlight the milestone, get a relative estimate. Yeah, like you can kind of see through this one, you get a highlight of a table of contents. These are just hyperlinks. You get a link to all the different boards that we use. So like I said, like we got our UX board. We also have a board dedicated to bugs. You can look at our refinement queue. So these are things we're taking from planning breakdown and we're looking to put in for the next couple milestones. Then we have our scheduling board. Then we have the things that are next up and ready to go. And then we have build, what's actively being done. And we talk about our capacity, and then yeah, like I said, those themes. So for like 14.8, some of the things that we're thinking about accomplishing, we're improving the project deletion experience, and then we're also making a big overhaul to the compliance dashboard page, which is now an insightful report. This has been a huge front-end effort. The development team's been kicking butt at it. Super excited to see this one go through. We conducted research, I want to say at the end of 2020 and into 2021. We had our validated insights. We knew what we wanted to do next. It's just taken a little while to get around to the point in which we had the capacity to start building out the front end, or really refining the front end. So a good bit of this is going to get knocked out from what was being built in 14.7 and into 14.8. And then, like I said earlier, our system usability scale, like we're trying to improve that score, which scores our overall usability of the product. I've created some stacked lists for a whole slew of them that we could pull from. This list I've manually sorted, so they roughly are in a logical order from most important to least important. But that's a lot to see at one time. So I also have a filter for it to show just like what's coming up for this milestone. As you can see, we already have 6 issues in flight for this milestone, which is fantastic. Nice. So we covered a little bit about some things you might want to check out in GitLab. There are a number of issues that I also highlight in there. So I grouped some content together to show you some things that are probably worth checking out, some smaller design problems, some bigger UI changes, and then category maturity scorecard research. Wow, what a mouthful. Those are probably things that I would think about digging into first, looking at the high-level roadmap that our PM had set forth in his parental leave issue. That can give you a good overview of like what's coming down the pipe. I will say, just from a blanket perspective, we have a ton of backlog work to do. Like, there's a ton of work that is ready to be refined, set an implementation plan, like months of work. So don't feel like you have to come up with a design tomorrow that's going to be implemented the next day. That's not what we want. Overall, we would love to have the capacity in which you have a few months of lead time. And I would say we're at that state right now. Like, you could come up with a design and we could implement it in the same milestone. That does happen. But on the flip side, like, if you need the time to go through, research a design, figure out how the best way to solve a problem, you do have the space and time to do that. So you are not pressured by any means to figure out everything all on day one. Certainly not in the first couple weeks. You know, let's jump into Figma. I did link to the Figma boards, or well, Figma team and project and files, maybe. Yeah, so I've broken up the different files across 3 different projects in the managed stage view. So one is focused on the build. So these are designs that are either they're currently spec'd for issues that are ready to be delivered, or they're things that are in flight. Some of these issues, they may end up getting broken into multiple implementation issues. It can sometimes take several issues and merge requests to actually implement a single idea. So there's not a perfect one-to-one, but as best I can, I try and label them with the epic or issue number. So there's always a link to find what thing is connected to what. So if you're in GitLab and you see an epic or an issue that you're like, oh, there's a screenshot here, wonder where that might be in Figma, you could just come up here and search. Like, if I want to find that first one in the list, 4637, you can search for it and you can find it. It'll sometimes pull associated things into it too. So just keep that in mind. It's probably a little bit of duplication. But yeah, so we got build, and we had like the validation. So these are probably more designs that we're exploring. I've added a couple bullseye targets to show like where you might want to focus first. And then there's a ton of designs that are living in like the archive. So these are designs that we've shipped or that we've already, that I've removed. And so plenty of places to get started and start figuring out where you want to work on first. Yeah, so you can just kind of peruse how that all works, how things are set up. Generally speaking, I'll just open up one of these. Yeah, we'll just open up the big one that's being developed right now. So we're converting that dashboard over into a report. Generally there's a cover page. Then I have like a final design that I used just to export some mock-ups. I wouldn't be surprised if something start breaking, because this was designed a while ago, and as you update components in Figma, it'll probably break some things. Yeah, I have just like a couple pages of, pardon my mess in some areas, but just exploration, trying to figure out what worked well, what didn't, some ideation stuff that I went through. But yeah, it's yours now. Like, you got the keys to the kingdom, you drive it however you like. And that's Figma in a nutshell. We have a really great component library. Instructions are all there, but you just turn on the buttons to enable your component library and you can start dragging and dropping them in. We have some research in Dovetail, which I've linked to, and some user testing sessions that have been conducted in the past, which I won't show because that'll show PII data, and I don't want to share any information that we're not supposed to. And yeah, I think that's enough to really get you started. I do recommend scheduling coffee chats. If you haven't already, start scheduling some coffee chats. Schedule them with engineers, schedule them with tech writing, schedule them with UX research, the PMs. Get to know the people around you. They are awesome and will be instrumental in your success at GitLab. So only getting to talk to them more will do you the best. So with that, I look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully we'll have a synchronous call by this point, but if not, I'll talk to you soon.